Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! So this is a story from a few years ago when I used to work in the shipping and receiving department of a large grocery store chain. One of the people I loved working with there, we will call him Bob, had an especially short fuse. Bob had worked in shipping and receiving for about 6 years by this point and hated it and the people that shopped there. And I can't blame him either. I'm telling you all this because I liked Bob, and since I generally was harder to upset anytime a customer would wander into the back looking for something or someone, I'd usually be the one to deal with them. No big deal, I really didn't mind it. But one summer's day, it was literally 110 degrees in the back of the truck we were unloading. The manager was yelling at us every 15 minutes to go faster. I would retreat back to his air-conditioned office. So as you can imagine, we were all in a bad mood already. All of a sudden we heard it, the dreaded sound everybody hates hearing. The dreaded "excuse me" coming from a Karen. Now this Karen looked to be around 60 to 70 years old, dressed extremely well, and had a perm. I mean the whole thing. Right as I look at her, I notice that she's carrying a milk jug that's leaking heavily everywhere. So I look at Bob to tell him that I got this and start to walk over to the Karen. I tell her I am sorry, but you can't be back here, as this is an employees only section. She starts screaming at me and says, "Well, I wouldn't have come back here if anybody here had any brain cells. I found this milk jug in an aisle unrefrigerated, and I decided that I am going to bring it back here to do you guys a favor since none of you can do your jobs." Visibly already done with this, I tried to put on my best customer service smile and say, "Well, we appreciate you bringing it to our attention, but in the future, if you could leave it where it is and ask an employee outside of this room to help, we would really appreciate it." Karen looks at me shocked, like I just told her that she isn't allowed to do whatever she wanted and that I was insulting her for doing her good deeds. Before I know it, she starts screaming at me like I'm an ungrateful little jerk for not accepting her help, and then does something that shocked everyone. She says, "Do you want the milk back?" And I said sure. When I put my hand out to grab it, she threw it at my head. Absolutely shocked that I just got hit with milk, I stay speechless. It turns out it didn't matter because before I could even react, here comes Bob. Remember how I said Bob hated this job and had a very short temper? Well, I guess this was a day where he was just like, forget it. Because without saying anything, this man comes over, picks up the milk, and throws it back at her with speeds you only see from a quarterback in a playoff game. He then tells her, "You silly witch, are you actually that stupid? This man was trying to help you out and be nice, and you have the nerve to throw this at him? You tracked half a gallon's worth of milk from where you found it to here just to be a jerk? Next time you want to do us a favor, just don't. Because I don't think you could. Get out of the back of this store and leave us alone." Now, if you thought I was speechless before, you hadn't seen anything until now. I mean, I must have looked like a statue. I was almost afraid to move at the risk of getting my own head ripped off. But the lady just turned around and waddles away really fast. I turn around and realize it's not just me that is speechless. All 5 other guys on shift that day are just looking at Bob with their mouths on the floor. I look at Bob and say, "I appreciate it, man, but I really hope you didn't go too far. She might try to get you fired." And that's where Bob smiles and says, "Nah, it's fine. There are no cameras back here because the company is cheap as heck. And I got all of you to back me up and say you have no idea what happened." I smiled. The rest of the group smiled. No one said anything. We just all smiled as if we were all mentally agreeing that we wouldn't say anything. As you can imagine, 10 minutes later, here comes at least 10 managers with this old lady in tow right behind them. She begins to say, "It was him! He did it!" We all just looked at this lady with a shocked look, like we had no idea what was going on. She goes through the whole scene that happened and we are all just like, what the heck? None of that happened. I step up and say, Bob never even talked to this lady. We have no idea what she's saying. I talked to her. She brought back a milk jug that was leaking everywhere, and I decided to bite my tongue and still be nice to this lady and take it. I asked her to exit the back of the store because it was an employee-only section, and she left. That was it. That's all that happened. You can check the cameras back here if you don't believe us. My manager looks at me and says, well, we don't have any cameras back here. But regardless, they are right, miss. You aren't supposed to be back here ever. We have lots of signs posted for it on the door. As you can imagine, this lady gets even more irritated, screeching like a banshee to the point no one can understand what she's even trying to say. My managers eventually just think she must be crazy and escort her out of the store. They give us a whole just make sure that you try to watch your tone of voice more with customers for future reference. You know, that kind of talk. But besides that, nothing happened. The woman couldn't prove anything, and we all vouched for Bob. The managers trusted me. They thought I'd never lie to them because, like I said, I'm usually the nice person who tries to help anyone and everyone. Am I saying that it was right what we did? No, not at all. In retrospect, we probably went too far. But at this time, none of us cared. We were done with Karen and her nonsense. We were already upset from the heat and our other manager, who was an arrogant jerk. This lady just pushed us over the edge that day. So lady, if you're reading this, we are sorry, but maybe don't throw milk at people and act like a Karen, and you won't get milk thrown back at you. I've seen posts about this kind of thing and thought, no way, this is real. What kind of person would call the police for that? Well, yesterday it happened, and I'm still confused about what this lady was thinking. We have been looking for a car for our youngest, looking through online ads, and we came across an ad for a luxury car that only wanted about 1/3 of what this car's blue book value is. The ad said the car just suddenly stopped starting. My husband is a mechanic, so we decided to look at it, just to see. Immediately he sees a couple of potential problems as to why it doesn't start. The car has new tires, the body is nearly perfect, and the interior needs a few easy fixes. Still well worth way more than the owner is asking, even with paying for repairs to get it running. Of course we bought it. Our youngest is ecstatic about getting a luxury car for graduation. Husband getting the car running, an even easier fix than he originally thought, and now it's time for the crazy lady. It is time for plates and registration. Off to the Department of Motor Vehicles we go. Coming out with the temporary tags, and my husband is putting them on a car. This lady walks up. Excuse me? Me, distracted by phone. Excuse me. I'm sorry, do you need something? Yes, that car. My car? What about it? Where did you get it? We bought it a few weeks ago. That's my car. No, it isn't. Now get away from us. My husband tells her. Yes, that is a car I was going to buy from the owner, and you stole it from me. Lady, I paid the owner what they were asking, and nothing was said about you. Leave us alone. The owner and I had an agreement about the car, and you came in and made her sell it to you. I want it back, and I want it now. I had to buy that piece of junk over there instead. Now you take that piece of junk and give me my car. What the heck? Now get out of my way before I run you over. I yell at her. I am not going anywhere. I've already reported to the police that I had found my stolen car, and they are on the way. Are you nuts, lady? You can't just report the car stolen because you missed a chance to buy it. What this insane woman doesn't know is that we were actually waiting on the previous owner to show up to get the car's plate and registration because there was a mix-up with the title. The Department of Motor Vehicles' fault. And we had to wait to get that fixed before we could title, register, and plate it. So we were still using the correct plates. The previous owner can then turn in her plate and get a refund for the months not used. 2 police cruisers pulled up about 5 minutes later. The previous owner pulled in right behind them. As the 2 officers were getting out and asking who called, the previous owner walked up to me and my husband, asking what was going on. she hadn't noticed the crazy lady yet. The crazy lady immediately started yelling how she had paid for this car and we forced the previous owner to give us a title instead. She wanted us arrested and demanded that we give her the title and position of the car right now. One of the officers walked over to us. I grinned because it was the son of one of my friends. He grew up with us and was friends with my oldest son. "Hey Brandy, want to tell me what is going on?" he asks us. "I don't really know. We bought this car a few weeks ago from this owner, and while we were waiting for her to show up to get her plate, this woman started screaming at us about stealing the car. Something about her and the owner having an agreement about the car, but the owner sold it to us instead. And now she's demanding that we take whatever car she ended up buying and we give her this one. Oh my god, this is exactly why I didn't sell her the car in the first place. She is my neighbor and she's insane. She asked me about it when I decided to sell it and I told her she could buy it, but she wanted me to get it running again, but still sell it to her for the low price. I told her I didn't want to deal with it and that is why it was low. If I got it running again, I might just keep it, but I would definitely raise the selling price to at least double. She has called me a few times asking if I had it running yet, and I have told her no, but she kept telling me to call her when I did. The officer then, going with procedures, checked all of our IDs, checked the bill of sale, previous registration, and ran the vehicle identification number. Everything checked out. I think we're done here. He then looked at the crazy lady and said, "Ma'am, it is a crime what you have attempted here. Actually, you made a false report, which is a crime, and I could arrest you, but I'm not. I'm sure you're just upset and made a bad judgment call, so we will let it slide." "No, it wasn't a false report. This is my car." "Ma'am, stop. Just stop. I could also charge you with attempted car theft, but we're all just going to walk away now." "No, I'm just not going to walk away. This is nonsense." She then points to the owner. "You owe me." And then she says the amount twice what we paid for the car. "And you," pointing at us now. "I will get my car back from you." "Ma'am, step over by the cruiser. We need to have a talk." The other officer tells her. I gave the plate to the previous owner and the officer we know told us to have a nice day. My husband and I went ahead and left while the previous owner went into the Department of Motor Vehicles. The crazy lady was still ranting at the other officer about allowing us to steal the car. The previous owner texted me later and told me that the crazy lady was arrested and put in the back of the police car when she left. And she was still yelling. I am not worried about any future contact with this crazy lady. We don't live in a town where the Department of Motor Vehicles is or where they live. In a couple of months, the car will be 2 hours away with my youngest at college. She doesn't know our names and the previous owner doesn't know where we live. So we're good. To summarize, my mother-in-law parked across the road from my neighbor's driveway. They started losing their minds as they believed it to be their property. This led to some shouting and of course he called to the police. So as you can probably guess, yes, the driveway overlords did indeed phone the police. After her threats, we waited around for my mother-in-law to be taken away for committing the ultimate crime, parking on a public street. I know, please try to hold judgment. However, like most close-knit streets, our other neighbors came out to see what all of us was about, and oh, did we get the gossip. It turns out, we aren't the only people she's complained about. Social carers for the elderly, visitors for other houses, council workers, and even people who lived on the street have all received notes and stern warnings from our delightful neighbors about our property. Although we were the lucky ones who finally pushed them over the edge. Well, they finally arrived. We can see their house from our window, so it was prime viewing. The lady of the driveway came running out of the house, clutching a mug of what I can only guess are the tears of orphan children. They went into her house and closed the door, and so we waited, praying, hoping that they would come across to get our side of the story. Well, our wish was granted. But let me tell you, it was so much sweeter than we could have imagined. After watching the officer poking his head out of the door like a Meerkat, trying to figure out where the car was that was parked in their driveway, she gave him a hand and pointed to my mother-in-law's car parked across the street. This poor fellow looked more confused than a drunk with a calculator. He eventually went back inside before heading over to our house, and that's where the real fun began. He came to our door and we greeted him with a customary "Hi, what can we do for you, officer?" And here is the following conversation from what I can remember. "Good morning. We received a complaint about a car from this property blocking a driveway." My mother-in-law says, "Hey there, yeah, we've been expecting you." "Are you the resident here?" "No, my son and daughter-in-law are, but it's my car that's been reported. The silver one across the street from their house." "So, I'm having trouble understanding the issue. Is your car parked across their driveway?" "Nope. It's been parked in the same space since I got here." "Well, your neighbor is claiming you parked their car in their drive and we're trespassing." "Oh, we know. She's been leaving notes on my cars and others in the street. She's been claiming that the entire section of the road is part of her personal driveway. You can ask the other neighbors." "What notes? Has she asked you to move?" "Kind of. She told us and the rest of the neighbors that they would try not to hit our cars." "What do you mean?" "She's been accusing us all of parking in her driveway, across the street from her house on a public road. I even have a photo of where the car was parked a few hours ago. I showed him the photo, making sure to point out the time and date it was taken, and he just shook his head. He asked if there was anything else he should know before dealing with the matter. We were more than happy to fill him in on how she came to my door to stomp her feet in disapproval, throwing all the aggressively condescending, "It's illegal, sweetheart," she could our way. He asked if we felt threatened, and I said no, but I wasn't happy that she was yelling at me while holding my baby. He said he understood, and we encouraged him to talk to the neighbors to get a full picture of what's going on. So that's exactly what he did, and oh boy, it was all so much worse than I thought. For them. In our street, news travels fast. We're gossipy little folks. We even have our own street WhatsApp group. Yeah, I know, it's kinda sad, but we're all friends. Lockdown really brought us together. The officer did in fact make his way down the doors, and they were all more than happy to rat them out after all their griping. It turned out that not only had they been harassing other people for parking near their home, but they had also been witnessed exiting the car looking a little wobbly. Wobbly as in 3 sheets to the wind, drunk as a skunk. One can only assume this is why he needs 20 plus feet to reverse into his drive. His wife, the lady of the driveway, and a pain in my life, has been spreading rumors that other people were having affairs. However, the piece de resistance was revealed to us when the officer came back to our house. When the officer asked about our trespassing on her property, she told the officer that I trained my cat to do her business in her plant pots. My huge, fluffy, and attitude-fueled kitty had been having his morning poop in her begonias. His name is Stanford, and he's renowned in our street for being a sassy little jerk, sitting on top of cars, sneaking into people's houses, and sleeping on their beds. And of course, tormenting dogs. I have never been prouder of him. In the end, the officer went back to her house and, from what we can tell, told her to stop being a fool, and if they were caught drunk driving, they will be arrested. Any more notes or coming to people's doors, and they could be charged with harassment due to the volume and nature of the events. Essentially, they were told to get a grip, and the officer went off to attend to actual crimes. Now the neighbor parks across the street from his driveway in protest, and the rest of the street accommodates by parking directly in front and behind him, as is our right by law. I hope my cat held eye contact while he was pooping on her plants. The cast of this story is me, my sister, amazing stepmom, dad, entitled old woman, and entitled old man. They weren't too old, maybe in their 60s. When I was 6 or 7, my stepmom decided we should take our dog out. A full-grown, beautiful, protective, and smart female pit bull, not short and muscular. She was tall and skinny, absolutely beautiful. She was absolutely the sweetest thing in existence and wouldn't hurt anyone or anything. unless my stepmom or dad told her. Our street is a dead end and the road ended with a bike path for the old person's home a few minutes down the path. It was completely public access since my stepmom was very good at keeping my dog in check. We didn't need a leash. Now I know how pit bulls are viewed. When I was little, I didn't understand the problem. We barely made it 3 steps on the bike path when the entitled old woman sees us. She yells and screams back at her husband. "Honey, give the dogs!" This woman storms toward us. My stepmom moves us behind her. And now my stepmom was wonderful, but she was absolutely tiny, a 4'9", 25-year-old who was totally cool and didn't take nonsense from anyone. She was more of a mom to me than my real one. When this lady got closer, my dog stepped forward wanting to protect us from the entitled old woman, who looked angrily at my dog then glared at my stepmom. This is paraphrasing because this was almost 10 years ago. "Are you insane?" the entitled woman screams. "I'm sorry, what's the problem?" "That monster! What's wrong with you? Are you stupid?" "Man, please don't cuss in front of my daughters." My stepmom pats my dog so she sits at my stepmom's feet. "You're lucky that monster hasn't eaten those girls." Again, this dog is too sweet. That monster is their dog. "You're a horrible mother. You should put that monster down." The entitled woman screeches. "How dare you call me a bad mom? I can't believe they let people like you adopt children." "Adopt? Are you insane? These are my kids." "They don't look anything like you, lady. How do we know you didn't kidnap them?" The entitled old man finally chimes in. "What is wrong with you?" My stepmom sadly couldn't have kids, so she was very protective of me, my sister, and our brother. "We should call the police." The entitled old woman screeches. Then the entitled man handed the woman their 2 tiny dogs and reached into his pocket, got out a pocket knife and reached for my sister. Our dog started barking at him and my stepmom started yelling for my dad. This old man knew he couldn't hurt our dog, so he tried snatching my wrist and my dog went for his arm, getting his sleeve. My dad got there as a husband's sleeve ripped and he fell down. The entitled old woman just started screaming at my dad and my stepmom about how they are evil kidnappers and how my dog is a demon. My dad is 6'3" and strong with lots of tattoos. He is absolutely intimidating. "What's going on?" my dad says to my stepmom, who tries to explain, but the old woman cuts in, screaming about how my stepmom is evil and she should take the hellhound back to hell and stay there. The entitled woman proceeds to slap my stepmom, and my dad was barely holding himself back and said, "Take the dog to the house." My dad yells. Me, a small 6-year-old, and my 7-year-old sister had to drag a large angry pit bull back to our house, only 4 houses away. I wasn't there for the rest of it, but my dad told me what happened when we left. The old lady tried to smack my stepmom again, but being the cool person she is, she dodged the punch and punched the Karen herself. At this point, someone called the police because this is normally a very quiet street, being a dead-end street. So the cops show up and put my stepmom, the old woman, and the old man in handcuffs. The entitled man still had his pocket knife out. The policeman questioned everyone and checked security cameras at the old folks' home, which was close enough for a camera to be pointed at the area where everything happened. My stepmom was let go and the entitled couple were taken in for a few days, at least. And that was my first encounter with an entitled person. I've had a few more, being almost 16 now. Necessary backstory. Otherwise, I look like the jerk who goes grocery shopping half an hour before they close on Christmas Eve. My work day started yesterday at 6 a.m. and ended a little after 7 p.m. The day before, I worked from 5 a.m. until sometime around 9 p.m. I don't remember off the top of my head what time or how long I worked during the days before that. It all just kinda runs together at this point. Today was my first day off in 9 days. Being off today has nothing to do with Christmas. That wasn't planned. I hadn't really thought about it being Christmas Eve until about an hour after I got to work when I wrote the day down. I knew it was Christmas Eve, but I guess that was when it fully registered. Anyway, that made me realize that I should probably stop somewhere after work and get some food since everything will be closed tonight and tomorrow. Yes, I have food in my house, but not much, and it's mostly just random stable food. I've spent an excessive amount of time at work this year, and I've learned that it's usually just easier and cheaper to either eat from the cafeteria or do restaurant pickup from somewhere else. Any other year, this wouldn't really matter because I'd spend almost all of Christmas Day off with family, where there is plenty of holiday food. But time was limited, and I obviously didn't plan well. I didn't want to go to a grocery store that late on Christmas Eve, but I also really didn't want to wake up this morning and eat noodles and mustard for breakfast. So that's the backstory. In a nutshell, I've just been working a lot, and Christmas sort of slipped my mind. So I leave work, drive to the nearest department store, park my car, and head toward the entrance. Literally, as I'm walking into the store, I hear someone on the intercom asking customers to please make their final selections, as the store would be closing in 30 minutes. I feel like such a jerk. I spent a good second or two entertaining the idea of leaving, but I was already there, and I was only grabbing a handful of items. There was no way this would take me more than 10 minutes. I grabbed one of those little baskets and head toward the grocery section. I hadn't been inside the building for more than 30 seconds, and suddenly this very obviously irritated 30-something-year-old man with 3 young kids in tow steps in front of me and yells, "Excuse me." Obviously, this took me by surprise. I was on a mission and hadn't planned for anything confrontational. I, being the quiet, kinda shy-ish introvert that I am, didn't really know how to respond. So I just stood there. I'm pretty sure my lack of a response made the guy even more angry, and he proceeds to yell at me again, this time asking, "Does this place not have a bathroom for my kid to use?" I'm so confused because at this point it hasn't occurred to me that he might think I'm an employee because, well, why would he? I'm carrying an empty shopping basket and I'm wearing scrubs. Now, I am a super laid-back person. It's not very often that people legitimately yell at me out of personal anger. So when that does happen, I have this tendency to throw all common sense out the window and either totally freeze or devolve into a toddler that's just starting to form 3-word sentences. So naturally, my response was a very long and drawn-out, I don't know, maybe? I really want to emphasize how long and drawn out that first was. So he gets louder. "You don't know?" I am so far beyond uncomfortable at this point, not to mention hungry and tired. Just need to leave. I say something like, "No. Yeah, no, I don't know, sorry, I don't know." And just take off walking really fast. I'm not even walking in the right direction anymore, just need this guy to go away. I turn down the nearest random aisle to find an alternate route. I can still hear the guy cussing at me, calling me names and so on. Just a plethora of obscenities. As long as he's not following me, I don't care. That guy was a weirdo and I just wanted to get my stuff and leave. My unexpected detour made me realize that I really needed new socks. And there they were, right in front of me. So I grab a bag of socks, turn to head back toward the grocery part of the store, and I hear the voice of an older woman asking, "Are the dressing rooms not open?" I turn around and she's definitely talking to me. Huh? Is she just making random conversation with a stranger? Or does she think I work here? And that's when I realized that the crazy bathroom guy with the anger issues must have thought I worked there too. But I wasn't really sure yet who this woman thought I was. So I just answered politely, "I think they've been keeping the dressing rooms closed since the pandemic." I guess my use of the word "they have" let the woman know that I wasn't an employee. She says, "Oh, you don't work here? I am so sorry." I told her it was fine and that she was the second person to think that tonight. It was awkward, but she was super sweet and we just shared a quick laugh, and I began walking toward the groceries again. As I'm walking, all I can think about is the fact that 2 different people just confused me for an employee at this department store. In addition to the scrubs, I am also wearing a matching jacket that everyone in our department received a few days ago as a Christmas present from management. The jacket was unzipped, so it wasn't hiding the scrub top. But even if it was zipped up, the back of the jacket has the name of the hospital along with a logo, and it's a pretty well-known hospital. As I'm filling my basket, I'm looking around at other employees and our clothing has absolutely zero in common, so yeah, that was weird. Anyway, I spent another minute or two grabbing what I needed and started heading to checkout. Still thinking about the old woman and the crazy bathroom guy with the anger issues. About 30 feet from checkout and I'm looking at the cashiers. They are all wearing khaki pants and red shirts. I am wearing faded slate gray scrubs. I pass a middle-aged guy on my way and he stops me and says, "Excuse me, ma'am, may I ask you a question?" Nothing makes any sense at this point, so I just politely respond, "You can, but I don't work here." He apologized and I got in line, paid for my items, and I left. I don't think I've ever been more confused in my life. This has to be one of the weirdest things I've ever experienced. Over the course of 10 minutes, 3 different people thought I worked there. My only logical conclusion is that everyone is just stressed out around Christmas time and they just weren't paying any attention. Still, really weird though.